We're joined now by Congressman Greg Murphy from North Carolina. His district includes much of the Atlantic coast of that state, which was obviously hit so hard. First, just the reaction to the story in general that came out of Florida with these houses, what you thought when you heard about it, and maybe also what you think we've learned today.
Yeah, Connell, it's just simply outrageous that we would have government agencies pick winners and losers, especially based upon political partisanship. You know, the person who put out the initial warning says she's a scapegoat. I think having the IG take a look at this is going to be altogether necessary. This type of partisanship we've seen throughout the Biden administration. So let's get to the bottom of it. Is it really true or not? That
part's interesting, right? The woman in question that you're talking about was on our network last night. Dan Abrams did an interview with her. We played a clip of it earlier on this show. And yeah, she says she was taking orders from somebody else. So where does this go? Congressman Scott Perry got into it today in a back and forth about the IG. Let's listen to that exchange right now.
Why shouldn't this be an independent investigation by at least somebody like the IG?
The actions that this employee took are unacceptable.
I know that, and you know that. We agree on that.
I would welcome an investigation by the IG.
But you haven't requested. Will you request one?
I will request one.
Thank you.
That would make sense to you, Congressman, that the possibility of someone else being involved in this, someone higher up than her, is certainly something. Obviously, we should be looking at least. I mean, she showed this Teams chat, Microsoft Teams chat, for her and her colleagues, and she says, you know, someone else basically told her what to say.
Yeah. Well, given the weaponization that we've seen over the last 4 years, if you look at what the preponderance of what might be, yeah, absolutely, it needs to be investigated to make sure. Let's let the American people know, is this a systemic issue or is it just an isolated event?
I'd like to talk about your area and see how things are going. Maybe you can give us an update. Speaker of the House, by the way, Mike Johnson, weighed in earlier today on all of this, including comments about North Carolina as well as Florida. Here's the Speaker.
I went to the sites of the devastation. I went to Florida, where Helene made landfall, and looked at the devastation there, all the way inland, even to the agricultural areas. And then I spent a lot of time in western North Carolina, where it looks like a bomb went off in most of those areas there. So these communities can be rebuilt responsibly, and Congress has a role to play. We'll be looking at all that.
It did look like a bomb went off in the western part of the state. How about your own district as well as the rest of the state of North Carolina as you talk with your colleagues? How are things now?
Yeah, you know, Connell, I went out there, I think, the third day after the hurricane. I live in the east, and we're the ones usually hit by the hurricanes, but I went out there with both our U.S. senators, flew over the area, and you go over a certain mountain range, and it is like a bomb went off. You had 30 inches of rain that came down, 2,000 and 3,000 foot peaks that came into huge flash floods, 100-mile-an-hour water that swept villages away, swept towns away, homes away. It's going to take a decade probably to build back up, and we need to absolutely intervene to try to get these people back on track as soon as possible.
What would you say, as you look at the numbers there and the damages, 103 deaths in North Carolina, what would you say about the job state, local officials, as well as FEMA, are actually doing on the ground from what you can pick up in North Carolina? Obviously, what happened here with this incident we've been talking about is terrible, should have never happened. But overall, what would you say about the job that's being done?
Yeah, you know, this couldn't have been prevented. I mean, this was a terrible disaster that occurred. It's the response that I think is critical. Look, in North Carolina, under Governor Cooper's leadership, we still have people in trailers from Hurricane Matthew in 2018. That's absolutely unacceptable. And now we have this similar type of issues going on. I think people need realistic expectations of how quickly they can rebuild their lives. But there's so much red tape that FEMA has put forth. You know, I'm looking forward to the Department of Government Efficiency going in and really restructuring these things. It should not take so long for the American people to get relief when they've had such a disaster.
Elon Musk